The night Hannah Reed was dragged screaming toward a forced marriage, the quiet harvest worker she'd been feeding scraps to for weeks became someone else entirely. Noah Carter, broke drifter, gentle stranger, threw himself between her and three armed men without hesitation. Blood split. Gravel exploded. She didn't know his truck had bulletproof windows or that the safe house he drove her to would have iron gates and security teams. She didn't know the man who asked if she'd eaten was worth $500 million. She only knew one thing as the mansion lights hit his face. Everything had been a lie. If you're watching from anywhere in the world, drop your city in the comments below and hit that like button. I want to see how far Hannah's story travels. Now let's go back to where it all began. The thing about loneliness was that it didn't announce itself. It didn't crash through the door or shatter windows. It just sat there, quiet and patient, in the spaces between board meetings and bedtime stories, waiting for Noah Carter to notice it had moved in permanently. He noticed. Every single day, Noah noticed. He was 32 years old, owned the kind of agricultural empire that fed half the Midwest, and couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at him like he was just a man. Not a contract, not a merger opportunity, not a walking trust fund with a tragic backstory and a photogenic daughter. Just a man. The office stretched out before him now, all floor-to-ceiling windows and reclaimed wood paneling that cost more than most people earned in a year. Lincoln, Nebraska sprawled below, autumn turning the trees into fire. Noah stood at the glass, tie loosened, watching his reflection fade as the sun dropped. Behind him, his phone buzzed for the 14th time that hour. He didn't reach for it. "Daddy?" The small voice turned him around. Mia stood in the doorway of his private office, clutching the stuffed rabbit she'd named Mr. Carrot with the seriousness only a 4-year-old could manage. Her dark curls, so much like her mother's, it still hurt to look sometimes, were escaping the ponytail their nanny had attempted that morning. Noah's entire expression transformed. The weight lifted. The armor dropped. "Hey, baby girl." He crossed the space in 3 strides and scooped her up, settling her on his hip like she weighed nothing. "What are you doing here? I thought you and Miss Patricia were making cookies." "We did." Mia held up hands covered in what appeared to be chocolate and possibly glitter. "But then she said I needed to wash, and I wanted to show you first." "Show me what?" "That I'm a good baker." She said it with such fierce pride that Noah felt something crack inside his chest. "Miss Patricia says I got talent." "Talent," Noah corrected gently, kissing her forehead and leaving a deliberate smudge of chocolate on his own cheek. "And she's absolutely right. You're the best baker in the whole state." "The whole world?" "The whole universe." Mia giggled, the sound bright enough to chase shadows from corners. She wrapped sticky fingers around his neck and whispered, "Are you sad again?" Noah froze. 4 years old. 4 years old, and she could read him better than anyone with an MBA and a profit projection. "No, sweetheart." The lie tasted bitter. "Just thinking." "About Mommy?" The name landed like a stone in still water. Sarah. Sarah, who'd left when Mia was 6 months old because this isn't what I signed up for, and I can't do this anymore, and 100 other excuses that all meant the same thing. She'd wanted the money, not the life. Not the midnight feedings and the board meetings interrupted by teething, and the reality that being Noah Carter's wife meant being a mother first. She'd walked away. She'd actually looked at this perfect little girl and walked away. Sometimes, Noah admitted, because he'd promised himself he'd never lie to Mia about the things that mattered. But mostly I'm thinking about how lucky I am to have you. Even with chocolate hands? Especially with chocolate hands. Patricia appeared in the doorway, slightly frazzled, apology written across her face. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Carter. She's quick." "She is." Noah set Mia down carefully. "Go get cleaned up with Miss Patricia, okay? And save me a cookie." 2 cookies, Mia negotiated. 3 cookies. 4. Deal. He watched them disappear down the hallway, Mia's laughter echoing off expensive walls, and felt the loneliness settle back in like fog. Titom. The dating had been a disaster from the start. After Sarah left, Noah had waited, grieved, rebuilt himself into something functional. And then, because everyone from his mother to his CFO insisted he couldn't raise a daughter alone and needed someone, he'd tried. Amanda had seemed perfect on paper. Corporate lawyer, sophisticated, put together. She'd smiled at Mia during their first meeting and said all the right things. By date 3, she was talking about the opportunities of merging their resources. By date 5, she'd mentioned that boarding schools really were excellent for developing independence in children. Noah had ended it that night. Then came Rebecca, an artist supposedly different from his usual type. She'd loved the ranch, loved the land, spent an entire weekend photographing the fields at sunset and talking about authentic rural beauty. She'd also spent that weekend asking pointed questions about acreage values and inheritance structures and whether Mia's trust fund was properly allocated. He'd driven her back to the city and never called again. Jessica had lasted 2 weeks, bright, funny, good with kids, until she'd gotten drunk at a charity gala and told her friends, loud enough for Noah to hear, that putting up with the kid stuff was worth it for the lifestyle upgrade. After that, Noah stopped trying. He told himself it was fine, that Mia was enough, that love was overrated anyway, and companionship could be found in friendships and business relationships and the satisfaction of building something meaningful. He told himself a lot of things. None of them felt true at 3 a.m. when Mia was asleep and the house was too big and too quiet, and Noah couldn't remember the last time someone had touched him without wanting something in return. His mother called it self-sabotage. His therapist called it protective isolation. Noah called it survival. But late at night, staring at the ceiling of a bedroom designed for 2, he called it what it really was: giving up. Cement. The idea came to him on a Tuesday. Noah was reviewing acquisition reports for a struggling family farm on the Nebraska-Iowa border, the kind of operation that had been passed down through generations until debt and drought had made it unsustainable. Standard procedure was to buy it, absorb the land, and move on. But something about the file caught his attention. Not the numbers, the notes. Family owned, 3rd generation, resistant to outside help, pride before profit, pride. Noah understood pride. He also understood what it meant to be seen only for what you owned, never for who you were. And somewhere between the financial projections and the satellite images of failing crops, an idea formed that was either brilliant or insane. Probably both. He made 3 phone calls. The first was to Patricia. "I need you to take Mia for a while. A month, maybe 6 weeks. I'll set you up at the guest house on the estate. She'll have everything she needs, and I'll call every day. Can you do that?" Patricia, who'd been with the family long enough to recognize when Noah had made up his mind, simply said, "Of course, Mr. Carter." The second call was to Marcus Chen, his head of security, and the only person Noah actually considered a friend. "I need a clean identity. Nothing illegal, just quiet. No connections to Carter Agricultural or any of my holdings. Can you make that happen?" Marcus was silent for a long moment. Then, "How deep are we going?" "All the way. This is about a woman. This is about finding out if anyone can see me without the money." "That's still about a woman, boss. Can you do it or not?" Marcus sighed. "Give me 48 hours. What name do you want?" Noah looked out the window at the fields that bore his family name, at the empire he'd inherited and expanded and sometimes felt buried by. "Something simple," he said quietly. "Something real. Jack Morrison it is." The third call was the hardest. "Mr. Carter?" His assistant's voice was crisp, professional. "I have the acquisition team standing by for the Reed Farm purchase. Are we proceeding?" Noah stared at the file, at the family who was drowning, too proud to ask for help, about to lose everything their grandparents had built. "Hold the acquisition," he heard himself say. "I'm going to handle this one personally." "Sir? I'm going out there, to work. I want to see the operation from the inside before we make any decisions." The silence on the other end spoke volumes. "You're going to work as a farmhand? Is that a problem?" "No, sir. It's just unexpected." Unexpected. That was one word for it. Insane was another. But Noah was done being the man everyone expected him to be. The lonely billionaire. The single father who couldn't make a relationship work. The guy who'd given up on finding something real because real things kept turning into transactions. He was done. And if that meant disappearing into the Nebraska nowhere to find out if anyone could love the man instead of the money, then that's exactly what he'd do. Even if it meant lying. Especially if it meant lying. Shout. The Reed farm looked like every other struggling operation Noah had evaluated over the years. Worn buildings that had seen better decades, equipment held together with determination and duct tape, fields that showed the stress of too little rain and too much debt. What the reports hadn't captured was the beauty. The way the sunset turned the corn gold. The smell of earth and growing things. The quiet that wasn't empty, just peaceful. Noah pulled up in a truck he'd bought for cash 3 towns over, rusted, dented, perfect. He'd spent the last week learning to look broke, thrift store clothes, a week's worth of beard growth, the kind of tired that came from sleeping in truck beds instead of California kings. He looked like he needed the work. He felt like a fraud. A woman emerged from the house as he cut the engine, 50-something, hard-faced, wearing exhaustion, like an extra layer of clothing. This would be Diane Reed, according to the file. Owner, operator, and by all accounts, the kind of stubborn that confused pride with strength. Help you? Her tone suggested he should keep driving. Noah climbed out slowly, hands visible, body language non-threatening. Heard you might be hiring for harvest. I'm looking for work. Who told you that? Guy at the feed store in town said the Reed place was short-handed. Diane's eyes raked over him, cataloging and dismissing in the same glance. You got experience? Some. Worked farms in Iowa, Kansas, mostly harvest and equipment repair. It wasn't entirely a lie. Noah had spent summers as a teenager working his family's operations, back when his father insisted he learn the business from the ground up. He could drive a combine, fix an irrigation system, and tell good soil from bad by feel. He just usually did it while wearing clothes that cost more than this entire truck. Pays minimum wage, and you sleep in the barn. Meals included if you work through. No drinking, no drama, and if you steal anything, I'll have the sheriff here before you hit the county line. Yes, ma'am. Something in the ma'am softened her, just slightly. What's your name? Jack Morrison. The lie sat heavy on his tongue. Diane studied him a moment longer, then jerked her head toward a weathered barn. Stow your gear. We start at dawn. You don't show up. You don't eat. Understood. She was already walking away when she stopped, turned back. You running from something, Jack? Noah met her eyes. Just looking for honest work, ma'am. Right. She didn't believe him. Most men who show up here this time of year are running from something. Long as you work hard and keep to yourself, I don't care what it is. She disappeared into the house. Noah stood in the fading light, truck door still open, and wondered if he'd just made the biggest mistake of his life. Then he grabbed his duffel bag, the one that contained everything Jack Morrison owned, and headed for the barn. Awesome. The barn was exactly what he'd expected. Dusty, drafty, and smelling strongly of hay and old machinery. A single bulb hung from the ceiling, casting more shadows than light. There was a corner that looked like it had been set up for workers before. A cot with a thin mattress, a wooden crate that could serve as a table, and a space heater that had probably been manufactured during the Cold War. Noah dropped his bag and sat on the cot. It creaked. He pulled out his phone, the burner Marcus had provided, not his regular one, and made the call he'd promised. Patricia answered on the first ring. Mr. Carter. How is she? Asleep. She asked about you at dinner, and I told her you were on a business trip. She made me promise you'd call tomorrow. I will, first thing. She's fine, Mr. Carter. We made brownies today. She wore more batter than made it into the pan. Noah smiled, the expression feeling strange on his face after the day he'd had. That sounds about right. May I ask? Patricia hesitated. How long are you planning to stay wherever you are? As long as it takes. To find what you're looking for? Noah looked around the barn at the life he'd chosen to step into and thought about the question he was really asking. Could anyone love him without the money? Yeah, he said quietly, as long as it takes. He ended the call and lay back on the cot, staring at the barn rafters, and tried not to think about how Mia's room back home had a ceiling painted with glow-in-the-dark stars and a sound machine that played ocean waves. This was temporary. This was necessary. This was the only way to find out if real love even existed anymore, or if he'd been right to give up all along. Dawn came early and brutal. Someone, Noah discovered it was Diane's son Tyler, pounded on the barn door at 5:15 and shouted, "Breakfast in 10, work in 20, don't be late." Noah rolled off the cot, every muscle reminding him that he'd spent the last several years behind a desk, not in a field. He pulled on jeans and a flannel shirt, ran hands through his hair, and headed for the house. The kitchen was warm and bright, a sharp contrast to the barn's darkness. Diane stood at the stove, managing what looked like industrial quantities of eggs and bacon. Tyler slouched at the table, mid-20s and radiating resentment. A younger woman, early 20s, blonde, checking her phone, sat across from him. And in the corner, almost invisible, was someone else. She was washing dishes at the sink, head down, movements efficient and quiet. Dark hair pulled back in a braid, worn jeans and a sweater with holes at the elbows. She didn't look up when Noah entered, didn't acknowledge the new presence in the room at all. "Sit," Diane commanded, nodding at an empty chair. "Hannah, get Jack a plate." The woman at the sink, Hannah, flinched slightly at her name. She dried her hands, pulled a plate from a cabinet, and brought it to the table without making eye contact. "Thank you," Noah said. She nodded once and retreated to the sink. "That's my daughter Hannah," Diane said, like she was identifying a piece of furniture. "She handles the house. Tyler and Amber run the operation with me." Amber, the blonde, glanced up from her phone long enough to give Noah a dismissive once-over before returning to her screen. Tyler just grunted. Hannah said nothing. The breakfast was good, better than good, actually. The eggs were perfectly cooked, the bacon crisp, the biscuits homemade and still warm. "This is excellent," Noah ventured. "Who cooked?" "Hannah," Diane said, making it sound like an accusation instead of a compliment. "Girl can cook, I'll give her that. Not much else, but she can cook." Noah watched Hannah's shoulders tense at the sink. Nobody defended her. Nobody even looked at her. Tyler scraped his chair back. "We're putting Jack on the equipment today, right? See if he actually knows his way around a tractor?" "That's the plan." Diane was already moving, breakfast apparently over. "You got a problem with that, Jack?" "No, ma'am." "Good. Tyler will show you what needs doing. You break something, you bought it." They filed out, Diane barking orders, Tyler trudging along, Amber still glued to her phone. Noah was the last to leave, and as he reached the door, he heard it. Quiet. Almost imperceptible. A shaky breath. He turned. Hannah was gripping the edge of the sink, head bowed, and he could see her shoulders trembling. Noah didn't know what made him do it. Didn't know what impulse overrode his common sense and his cover story and every reasonable thought in his head. He just knew he couldn't leave. "Hey," he said softly. "Are you okay?" Hannah's head snapped up. She stared at him like he'd spoken a foreign language, brown eyes wide and wet. "I'm fine," she whispered. "You should go. They don't like waiting." "I'm asking if you're okay." She looked at him for a long moment, this stranger in her kitchen, and he saw something flicker across her face. Confusion, suspicion, and underneath it all, something that looked like desperate, fragile hope. "Nobody asked that," she said finally. "I'm asking." "Why?" It was a fair question. Noah didn't have a good answer except the truth. "Because you look like you needed someone to ask." Hannah's breath hitched. She looked away, quickly, like she couldn't afford to let him see whatever was happening in her eyes. "I'm fine," she repeated. "Thank you for asking. But I'm fine." She wasn't fine. Noah knew not fine when he saw it. He'd lived it often enough himself. But Tyler was shouting from outside, and Noah was supposed to be Jack Morrison, drifter, and nobody, not Noah Carter, billionaire with resources and power and the ability to fix things. So he nodded, walked away, and told himself it wasn't his problem. The lie felt heavier than any of the others. The work was brutal and honest. Noah spent the morning repairing an irrigation line that should have been replaced 5 years ago, then the afternoon in a tractor that needed more than maintenance. It needed a miracle. Tyler supervised with barely concealed contempt, waiting for Noah to fail. Noah didn't fail. By sunset, he'd proven he could work, and Tyler's contempt had shifted to grudging indifference. Not bad for a drifter, Tyler muttered. Same time tomorrow. Noah nodded, too tired to speak, and headed back to the barn. He was halfway there when he noticed the light, the house's back porch light, and in its glow, Hannah. She was sitting on the steps, alone, staring out at the darkening fields. There was a stillness about her that Noah recognized, the kind that came from being invisible so long you forgot how to take up space. He should have kept walking. He didn't. Hey, he said, approaching slowly, hands visible. Mind if I sit? Hannah looked up, startled. You don't have to. I'm not asking because I have to. She studied him for a moment, then shrugged. It's a free porch. Noah sat, leaving space between them, close enough to talk, but far enough to be respectful. For a while, neither spoke. The crickets sang, the wind moved through the corn, the sky turned from blue to purple to black. You worked hard today, Hannah said finally. Tyler said you actually know what you're doing. High praise from Tyler. The ghost of a smile crossed her face. He doesn't like strangers. What about you? What about me? Do you like strangers? Hannah pulled her knees up, wrapped her arms around them. I don't like much of anything anymore. The honesty of it hit Noah in the chest. I'm sorry, he said, meaning it. For what? For whatever made you feel that way. She turned to look at him then, really look, and Noah felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with his fake name or his real identity. You're different, Hannah said quietly. From the other workers who come through, they don't talk to me. Why not? Because I'm the family embarrassment. She said it matter-of-factly, like it was a weather report. The daughter who didn't leave when she had the chance, who stayed and became this. This seems like someone who takes care of everyone else. Hannah laughed, but there was no humor in it. That's one way to put it. What's another way? She was quiet for a long time. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper. Useful. The word hung in the air like a confession. Noah thought about all the times he'd felt exactly that way. Useful, valued for what he could provide, never for who he was. Have you eaten? The question came out before he could stop it. Hannah blinked. What? Dinner. Have you eaten dinner? I served everyone else. There wasn't... I'll eat later. Anger flared in Noah's chest, hot and sudden. She'd cooked the meal and served it and been left with nothing. Wait here, he said, standing. You don't have to... But Noah was already moving. He went to the barn, dug through his supplies, and pulled out the sandwich he'd saved from lunch and an apple he'd pocketed. It wasn't much. It was probably insulting, offering someone who'd cooked a feast his meager leftovers. But when he came back and held them out, Hannah stared at them like he'd offered her the world. I can't, she said. Why not? Because it's yours. I'm not hungry. A lie. He was starving. Please. Hannah took the food with trembling hands. She bit into the sandwich and closed her eyes, and Noah saw a tear slip down her cheek. Thank you, she whispered. They sat in silence while she ate. Noah watched the fields, giving her privacy, and wondered what kind of family let someone go hungry in their own home. When she finished, Hannah wrapped the apple core carefully in the napkin, like she was going to save it for later. Can I ask you something? Noah said. Okay. Why do you stay? Hannah looked at him with eyes that had seen too much and believed in too little. Where else would I go? She said simply. And Noah, who owned houses across 3 states and land that stretched to horizons, had no answer for that, because for the first time in years, he understood exactly how she felt. Trapped, alone, invisible. I'm Jack, by the way, he said, extending his hand. Jack Morrison. Hannah shook it carefully, like she wasn't used to being touched without violence. Hannah Reed, she said, though I guess you already knew that. Nice to officially meet you, Hannah. Nice to meet you too, Jack. She smiled then, small and hesitant, and Noah felt something shift in his chest, something that hadn't moved in years, something dangerous and tender and absolutely terrifying. He told himself it was just kindness. He told himself he was just being decent. But late that night, lying on his cot in the barn, staring at the dark rafters and thinking about brown eyes and trembling hands, and the way she'd said, "Nobody asks that," like it was the saddest truth in the world. Noah admitted the truth. This wasn't just about testing whether someone could love him without the money. This was about Hannah, and he was in so much trouble. The days that followed developed a rhythm that felt both foreign and achingly familiar to Noah. He woke before dawn to the sound of Tyler's fist against the barn door, worked until his hands cracked and his back screamed, and fell onto his cot each night too exhausted to think about the empire he'd left behind, or the daughter who asked Patricia every evening when Daddy was coming home. Almost too exhausted, but not quite enough to stop thinking about Hannah. She was everywhere and nowhere, a ghost in her own house. Noah watched her move through the margins of the Reed family's life, cooking meals no one thanked her for, cleaning rooms that would be destroyed by evening, tending a garden behind the barn that no one else seemed to notice existed. And every night, without fail, she appeared on that back porch as the sun set, waiting. Noah told himself he went there for the fresh air, for the quiet, for anything except the truth, which was that those 20 minutes sitting beside Hannah Reed while darkness fell had become the only real thing in his carefully constructed lie. "You don't have to keep bringing me food," Hannah said on the fourth night, but she took the granola bar he offered anyway. "You don't have to keep feeding everyone else first," Noah countered. "That's different." "How?" She was quiet for a moment, picking at the wrapper. "It's what I'm here for. To starve. To be useful." There was that word again, useful. It set Noah's teeth on edge every time. "Hannah, why are you being nice to me?" She turned to face him, and in the fading light her eyes looked bruised. "You don't know me. You don't owe me anything, so why?" Noah could have said a dozen things. Could have deflected, made a joke, kept the walls up the way he'd learned to do over years of protecting himself. Instead, he told her the truth. "Because I know what it feels like," he said quietly, "to be surrounded by people and completely alone." Hannah stared at him like he'd cracked open and shown her something raw. "You're a drifter," she said, but there was a question in it. "You must be used to alone. There's alone by choice, and alone because everyone else decided you don't matter." Noah looked out at the fields, at land that should have been thriving but was slowly dying from neglect. "I'm guessing you know the difference?" She didn't answer, but the way her breath caught told him enough. They sat in silence while the stars came out, and Noah wondered how someone could be this invisible in their own family. How many meals had she cooked while her stomach was empty? How many nights had she sat out here alone, waiting for someone, anyone, to see her? "Tell me something," Hannah said finally. "Something true. About you." It was a dangerous question. Noah's entire presence here was a lie built on lies, and one truth could unravel everything, but he was tired of lying to her. "I have a daughter," he heard himself say. "She's 4. Her name is Mia." Hannah's head snapped toward him. "You're married?" "Divorced. Well, separated. My wife left when Mia was 6 months old." The words tasted like ash, but at least they were honest. "She didn't want to be a mother, didn't want the responsibility." "I'm sorry," Hannah whispered. "I'm not. Not anymore." Noah meant it. "Mia's the best thing that ever happened to me. Losing her mother hurt, but keeping my daughter? That's everything." "Where is she now?" "With someone I trust. Someone safe." Noah's chest tightened, thinking about Mia tucked into bed at the estate, probably making Patricia read the same story 3 times. "I call her every night. And she knows you're out here working farms? She thinks I'm on a business trip." "Is that what this is?" Hannah asked. "Business?" Noah looked at her, really looked at her, and knew he couldn't keep lying. Not completely. "No," he said. "This is me trying to figure out if there's anything real left in the world." Hannah held his gaze for a long moment, something shifting in her expression that Noah couldn't quite read. "Did you find it yet?" she asked softly. "Yeah," Noah said, the realization hitting him like a physical thing. "I think I did." The next morning, everything changed. Noah woke to voices outside the barn, angry voices, the kind that preceded bad decisions. He pulled on jeans and stepped into the early light to find Tyler and another man arguing near the equipment shed. The stranger was tall, well-fed, wearing clothes that cost more than anything the Reeds owned. 50s maybe, with the kind of face that smiled when it hurt people. "I'm not asking, Tyler. I'm telling you." The man's voice carried authority and menace in equal measure. "Your mother has until the end of the month, or I take everything. We're working on it. You've been working on it for 6 months. I'm done waiting." "Mr. Hollis, please." Hollis. The name from the file Noah had read a dozen times. Grant Hollis, local land baron, the kind of predator who bought desperation at bargain prices and called it business. The kind of man Noah usually had lawyers destroy before breakfast. "Your mother made me a promise," Hollis continued, and something in his tone made Noah's skin crawl. "She said if I held the debt another season, she'd make it worth my while." "We'll get you the money?" "I don't want the money anymore, son." Hollis smiled, and it was the ugliest thing Noah had seen in years. "I want what we agreed on." Tyler's face went pale. "That wasn't... We never actually... Your mother shook my hand. In my world, that's a contract." Hollis adjusted his expensive watch. 3 weeks, Tyler. You tell Diane that. 3 weeks, and I expect delivery." He walked back to a gleaming truck, Ford Raptor, detailed and pristine, and drove away, leaving Tyler standing in the dust looking like he might be sick. Noah waited until the truck disappeared before approaching. "Everything okay?" Tyler spun, defensive. "None of your business, Drifter." "Didn't say it was. Just asking." "Well, don't." Tyler stalked toward the house, then stopped, turned back. "And if you know what's good for you, you'll forget everything you just heard." He was gone before Noah could respond, but Noah didn't forget. Couldn't forget. Because something about that conversation felt wrong. Not just wrong, dangerous. He found Hannah in the garden that afternoon, pulling weeds between rows of tomatoes and beans. She didn't look up when he approached, but her hand stilled. "Can I help?" Noah asked. "You don't have to." "Hannah." He waited until she looked at him. "Can I help?" She gestured to the far row, and Noah knelt in the dirt, following her rhythm. They worked in comfortable silence for a while, the sun warm on their backs, the earth familiar under their hands. "This is beautiful," Noah said, looking around. The garden was easily a quarter-acre, meticulously maintained, bursting with late-season vegetables. "You did all this? Nobody else wanted it." Hannah pulled a weed with unnecessary force. "They said it was a waste of time, that we should focus on the cash crops. They're idiots." That surprised a laugh out of her, short and sharp, but genuine. "You can't say that." "Why not? It's true." Noah sat back on his heels. "This garden could feed your family year-round. Could be a farm stand, even. People pay good money for organic vegetables grown this well." "Tyler says there's no money in vegetables." "Tyler's wrong." Hannah looked at him with something that might have been hope if hope hadn't been beaten out of her so many times before. "You really think so?" "I know so." Noah meant it. This garden was better than half the organic operations he'd evaluated for acquisition. "You have a gift, Hannah." "For growing tomatoes?" "For making things live." She stared at him, and Noah watched something crack in her careful armor. "Nobody's ever said that before," she whispered. "Then nobody's been paying attention." Hannah looked away quickly, but not before Noah saw tears. "Who was that man this morning?" he asked, keeping his voice casual. "The one arguing with Tyler?" Hannah's entire body went rigid. "You should stay away from Grant Hollis," she said, not looking at him. "Why?" "Because he's dangerous, because he owns half the county and thinks he owns the other half too." "What does he want with your family?" Hannah's hands trembled as she reached for another weed. "Money we don't have, and things we shouldn't have to give." The way she said it made Noah's blood run cold. "Hannah, I need to go." She stood abruptly, wiping dirt on her jeans. "Dinner won't make itself." "Wait." But she was already walking away, shoulders hunched like she was bracing for a blow. Noah watched her go and felt something dark and angry unfurl in his chest. He'd seen enough predators in his life to recognize the signs. The debt, the pressure, the way Tyler had looked sick when Hollis mentioned delivery. He pulled out his burner phone and called Marcus. Chen, I need information on someone. Grant Hollis operates in the Nebraska-Iowa border region. Marcus was quiet for a beat. What kind of information? Everything. Business dealings, outstanding debts, legal issues. And Marcus? I need it yesterday. This related to your farm adventure? Yeah. You found her, didn't you? The woman you were looking for. Noah looked toward the house, where Hannah was visible through the kitchen window, moving through someone else's space like a ghost. Yeah, he said quietly. I found her. Be careful, boss. Women like that, the ones worth finding, they're the ones who break you. I know. But you're doing it anyway. I'm doing it anyway. Marcus sighed. Information in 6 hours. Try not to blow your cover before then. Whoa. Dinner that night was tense. Diane presided over the table like a general surveying a losing battle. Tyler picked at his food, avoiding eye contact with everyone. Amber scrolled through her phone, oblivious or uncaring, and Hannah served everything in silence, taking nothing for herself. Noah watched it all and felt rage simmer under his skin. Hannah, sit down and eat, he said. Everyone froze. Diane looked at him like he'd suggested burning the house down. Excuse me? She cooked all this. She should eat. Jack? Hannah's voice was pleading, desperate. It's fine. How is Jack supposed to know how we run things? Amber looked up from her phone long enough to sneer. He's been here, what, a week? 6 days, Tyler muttered. The help doesn't tell us how to manage our family, Diane said, her voice cold enough to freeze. And you do well to remember that's what you are, Jack. Help. Temporary help. Noah met her eyes and saw exactly what she was. A woman who'd turned her fear into cruelty and her desperation into control. Yes, ma'am, he said, because Jack Morrison would back down, even if Noah Carter wanted to throw the table. Hannah fled to the kitchen. Dinner continued in silence. But after, when Noah stepped outside and found Hannah on the porch, already crying, he'd had enough. How long has it been like this? He asked, sitting beside her without asking permission. Like what? Don't. Noah kept his voice gentle but firm. Don't pretend with me, Hannah. How long? She wrapped her arms around herself, rocking slightly. Always, since I was little. I'm the youngest, the accident they didn't want. My father left when I was 2. Diane blamed me. Tyler and Amber learned to blame me too. That's not your fault. Isn't it? Hannah looked at him with eyes that believed every terrible thing they'd ever told her. If I'd never been born, maybe he would have stayed. Maybe they'd be happy. Maybe... Stop. Noah couldn't help it. He reached for her hand, held it between both of his. Stop believing they're poison, Hannah. You are not the reason for their failures. You don't know that. I know that blaming a child for adult problems is the coward's way out. I know that you deserve better than this. And I know... He stopped, the words catching in his throat. Know what? That watching you believe you're worthless is the hardest thing I've done in years. Hannah stared at their joined hands like she didn't understand what touching meant. Why do you care? She whispered. You're just passing through. You'll be gone in a few weeks, and everything will be exactly the same. What if I don't want to be just passing through? Jack, what if I think you deserve someone who sees you, who knows you're not invisible, you're just surrounded by blind people? A tear slid down Hannah's cheek. You don't mean that. I've never meant anything more in my life. They sat there, hands clasped, while the night deepened around them. And Noah felt the lie he was living press against his chest like a physical weight. She thought he was broke, rootless, powerless to change anything. She had no idea he could end her family's debt with a phone call, could make Grant Hollis disappear with a word to his legal team, could give her everything, the ocean she dreamed of, the bakery she whispered about, a life where nobody called her a mistake. But if he told her now, she'd never know if she chose him or the money. And Noah needed her to choose him, just him, the way he was choosing her. Tell me about the ocean, he said instead. Hannah blinked. What? You mentioned it once, that you dreamed about the ocean. Tell me about it. She looked at him like he'd offered her something precious and fragile. I've never seen it, she admitted. Never been anywhere, really. But sometimes I imagine what it would be like to stand at the edge of something that big and know that no matter what happened behind me, there was always somewhere else to go. That's not about the ocean, Noah said gently. That's about freedom. Same thing, maybe. What else do you dream about? Hannah was quiet for so long Noah thought she wouldn't answer. When she did, her voice was barely audible. A bakery, something small where I could make things that make people happy, where everything smells like bread and cinnamon, and people come because they want to, not because they're obligated. She laughed, embarrassed. Stupid, right? It's perfect, Noah said. You should do it. With what money? What experience? I can't even leave this farm. Why not? Because where would I go? I have nothing, Jack. No education, no savings, no skills anyone would pay for. I'm trapped here until... She stopped abruptly. Until what? Hannah pulled her hand away, stood up. I need to go. Hannah, please, just let it go. She was inside before Noah could stop her, the door closing between them with devastating finality. Noah sat alone on the porch and pulled out his phone. Marcus had sent the report 3 hours ago. Noah opened it, and what he read made his hands shake with rage. Grant Hollis wasn't just a creditor. He was a collector of debts that went far beyond money. There were whispers, nothing concrete enough for criminal charges, but enough to paint a picture, of arrangements made with desperate families. Young women who'd disappeared from debt-ridden farms, only to surface years later in cities far away, broken and silent. And Diane Reed, according to property records and loan documents, owed Hollis $200,000, the same amount Noah carried in his wallet back home as emergency cash, the same amount that apparently had a very different price tag attached. Noah looked at the house, at the window where Hannah's shadow moved in the kitchen, and understood exactly what Tyler had looked sick about, what Hollis meant by delivery, what Hannah was running from when she fled the porch. They were going to give her to him. Her own family was going to hand her over to that predator like she was livestock, like she was property, like she was nothing more than a debt payment in human form, over Noah's dead body. He stood, every muscle coiled with purpose, and headed for the barn. He had calls to make, resources to deploy, lawyers to activate. But first he needed to figure out how to save Hannah without revealing who he really was. Because the second she knew he had money, everything would change. She'd never know if he wanted her or if she was just another charity case. And Noah couldn't live with that, not when he was already halfway to loving her. The confrontation came 2 days later. Noah was repairing fence posts on the far edge of the property when he heard the truck. Same gleaming Raptor, same predator behind the wheel. Grant Hollis stepped out like he owned the place, which Noah supposed he essentially did. Diane came out to meet him. Tyler and Amber followed, looking like executioners preparing for the drop. And then Hannah appeared in the doorway. The look on her face told Noah everything. She knew. She'd always known. Noah dropped the post he was holding and started walking toward the house. He was too far away to hear the conversation, but he could see body language, could see Hollis gesture toward Hannah, could see Diane nod, businesslike, arranging a transaction, could see Hannah's shoulders curve inward, her head drop, every part of her body language screaming defeat. Tyler said something. Amber looked away, and Hollis smiled that terrible smile. Noah was running before he made the conscious decision to move. He reached the porch as Hollis was reaching for Hannah's arm as Diane was stepping back to let it happen, as Hannah was closing her eyes like she could disappear by simply refusing to see. No, Noah said. Everyone turned. Jack, this isn't your concern, Diane started. Hannah, look at me. She opened her eyes. They were wet, terrified, and so tired. You don't have to do this, Noah said. Yes, she does. Hollis's voice was smooth, reasonable, the tone of a man who always got what he wanted. We have an agreement. Her family's debt in exchange for Hannah's companionship. The word made Noah's skin crawl. That's not an agreement, Noah said. That's trafficking. Call it what you like. It's legal enough. Hollis shrugged. And none of your business, friend. You're just hired help. I'm not your friend. Something dangerous flickered in Hollis's eyes. You want to get involved in this, son? You understand what you're stepping into? Noah looked at Hannah, really looked at her, and saw someone who'd given up believing in rescue, saw someone who needed to know she was worth fighting for. Yeah, Noah said. I understand perfectly. Jack, don't, Hannah whispered. Please, just go back to work. Forget you saw this. I'm not going to do that. They'll hurt you. They can try. Hollis laughed, the sound ugly. You're making a mistake. The mistake, Noah said, stepping between Hollis and Hannah, would be letting you touch her. You got a death wish, Drifter? Noah smiled, and it was nothing kind. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Sure I do. Some broke nobody trying to play hero. Hollis nodded to Tyler. Get him out of here, now! Tyler moved forward, and Noah could see the resignation in his face, the knowledge that he was choosing money over morality, debt over dignity, and hating himself for it. But not enough to stop. Tyler reached for Noah's shoulder. What happened next took 3 seconds and changed everything. Noah moved like the martial arts training he'd spent years studying had always promised. Fast, precise, devastating. Tyler went down hard, gasping. Hollis started forward, and Noah's fist met his jaw with enough force to spin him sideways. Diane screamed. Amber ran, and Noah turned to Hannah, breathing hard, knuckles bleeding, and held out his hand. Come with me, he said. Hannah stared at him like he'd turned into someone else entirely. Jack, come with me right now, Hannah. Please. Behind him, Hollis was getting to his feet, phone already out, probably calling whoever men like him called when the world didn't cooperate. They had seconds. I can't, Hannah whispered, but her hand was already reaching. Yes, you can. Where will we go? Anywhere. Everywhere. Does it matter? Hannah looked at the house where she'd spent her whole life invisible, at the family who'd raised her to believe she was worthless, at the man who'd tried to buy her like she was an object. Then she looked at Noah, this strange, kind man who'd asked if she'd eaten, who'd held her hand on a porch, who'd just taken on her entire world without hesitation. No, she said, taking his hand. It doesn't matter. Noah pulled her toward his truck. Behind them, Hollis was shouting threats. Diane was screaming about police and consequences, and Tyler was still on the ground trying to remember how to breathe. Noah didn't care. He yanked open the passenger door, helped Hannah inside, and ran to the driver's side. The engine turned over on the third try. Planned obsolescence, Noah thought distantly, already making a mental note to buy better vehicles for this kind of thing in the future. If there was a future. If they survived the next hour. Noah floored it, gravel spraying, truck fishtailing, Hannah's terrified breathing loud in the cab. In the rearview mirror, he watched the Reed farm disappear, watched Hannah's prison fade into the distance, and wondered what the hell he was going to do now that he'd just blown his cover, assaulted 2 men, and kidnapped, rescued, he corrected himself firmly, the woman he was falling in love with, the woman who still thought he was broke. The woman who had no idea the safe place he was driving her to had gates and guards and enough money to end this nightmare permanently. Jack, Hannah said, her voice shaking, what did we just do? Noah looked at her, terrified, brave, free for the first time in her life, and told her the only truth that mattered. We chose you, he said. We finally chose you. Hannah couldn't stop shaking. Her hands trembled in her lap, fingers twisted together so tightly they'd gone white. The truck's engine roared beneath them, eating up highway miles, and she couldn't process any of it. Couldn't understand what had just happened. Couldn't reconcile the quiet man who'd shared granola bars on her porch with the person who'd just fought off her family and a man twice his size without breaking a sweat. Where are we going? Her voice came out smaller than she'd intended. Jack's hands were steady on the wheel, his jaw set, eyes fixed on the road like he was calculating something. Somewhere safe. Safe from what? Jack, they're going to call the police. You hit Grant Hollis. Her breath hitched. Oh God, what did we do? What we should have done weeks ago. Jack glanced at her, and there was something in his eyes she couldn't name, something that looked like guilt and determination mixed together. Hannah, I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Trust him. She'd known him for barely 2 weeks, and he was asking her to trust him with her entire life. The terrifying part was that she did. I don't even know you, she whispered. I know. You could be anyone. You could be taking me somewhere worse. I could be. Jack's knuckles were bleeding on the steering wheel, torn from where they'd connected with Tyler's face. But I'm not. Hannah looked out the window at Nebraska flying past, fields and farmhouses, and the only world she'd ever known disappearing behind them. She thought about Grant Hollis's hand reaching for her arm, about her mother's face when she'd nodded, sealing the agreement, about Tyler looking away because it was easier than facing what they were doing, about spending the rest of her life as payment for someone else's mistakes. Okay, she said quietly. I trust you. Jack's shoulders dropped slightly, like he'd been holding his breath. Thank you. But Jack, Hannah turned to look at him fully. What happens when they find us? They won't. You don't know that. Grant Hollis owns half the county. He has connections, money, resources. So do I. The way he said it made Hannah pause. There was something in his tone that didn't match the rusted truck, or the thrift store clothes, or the story of a broke drifter looking for work. What do you mean? Jack was quiet for a long moment, and Hannah watched something war across his face. Finally, he said, I mean, I'm not going to let anyone hurt you. Not Hollis, not your family, not anyone. It wasn't really an answer, but before Hannah could push, Jack's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening, and answered it on speaker. Yeah. Where are you? The voice on the other end was male, controlled, with the kind of authority that suggested he was used to being obeyed. About 40 miles out, ETA 90 minutes. Security's ready. Medical team's on standby. Do I need to activate legal? Hannah's eyes went wide. Medical team? Legal? Probably, Jack said. Hollis is going to push back hard. Let him try. I'll have injunctions filed within the hour. Is she hurt? Jack looked at Hannah and she saw real concern in his eyes. Hannah, are you hurt? Did Hollis touch you before I got there? No, I mean, he grabbed my arm earlier, but... She was so confused. Who is that? What's happening? Marcus, I'll call you back. Jack ended the call before the other man could respond. Jack, what the hell is going on? I'll explain everything, I promise. But first I need to get you somewhere safe, and then... He took a shaky breath. Then I need to tell you the truth. The truth. The word hung between them like a blade. Hannah's stomach twisted. What truth? Not yet. Please, Hannah, just not yet. She stared at him, at this man she'd let herself believe in, and felt the first crack of doubt. You lied to me. Yes. About what? Everything that matters. Hannah's breath caught. Are you married? Is that it? You have a wife somewhere and I'm just... No. Jack's voice was fierce. God, no, I told you about Mia. That was real. My daughter is real. My divorce is real, and the way I feel about you... He stopped himself. That's real too. Then what did you lie about? Jack's hands tightened on the wheel. Who I am. The world seemed to tilt sideways. Hannah pressed herself against the passenger door, suddenly aware of how small the cab was, how fast they were moving, how completely at this stranger's mercy she'd placed herself. Your name isn't Jack Morrison, she said flatly. No. So what is it? I'll tell you. I swear I'll tell you everything. But please, let me get you safe first. Let me... His voice cracked. Let me make sure you're okay before you decide if you hate me. Hannah wanted to scream at him to pull over, wanted to demand answers right now, this second, before another mile passed. But there was something in his voice, something broken and desperate and so profoundly scared that made her hesitate. I should hate you already, she said quietly. I know. I should tell you to stop this truck and let me out. I know that too. But I'm not going to. Jack looked at her, surprise and relief and something deeper washing across his face. Why not? Hannah didn't have a good answer except the truth. Because you asked if I'd eaten. Because you saw me when no one else did. Because whatever you lied about, I don't think you lied about that. I didn't, Jack said, and his voice was raw. Hannah, I swear on my daughter's life, I didn't lie about seeing you. They drove in silence after that, the miles accumulating, the sun starting its descent toward the horizon. Hannah watched the landscape change, farmland giving way to suburbs, suburbs giving way to something else entirely. Wealth. The houses got bigger, the lawns got greener, the cars and driveways went from practical to expensive to absolutely ridiculous. Hannah had never been in this part of Nebraska, hadn't even known it existed, and with each passing block her confusion deepened. Jack, where are we? Almost there. Almost where? Instead of answering, Jack turned onto a private road. Trees lined both sides, old growth oaks that had probably been there for centuries. The road curved gently upward, and then suddenly there was a gate. Not a gate like the Reed farm had, a simple thing of wood and wire. This was iron, 12 feet tall, with a security camera and an intercom and the kind of presence that said very clearly, "Turn back now unless you belong here." Jack pulled up to the intercom and pressed a button. A voice crackled through immediately. "Welcome home, Mr. Carter." The gate swung open smoothly, silently, like they'd been waiting. Hannah's world tilted. Carter. Mr. Carter. "Oh my God," she whispered. Jack drove through without looking at her, his jaw tight, and Hannah understood with sudden, crushing clarity that whatever she'd been imagining, whatever lies she thought he'd told, it was so much bigger than she'd feared. The road continued for another quarter mile through manicured grounds that looked like a park, and then the house appeared. Except it wasn't a house. It was a mansion. Stone and glass and modern architecture that probably cost more than Hannah's entire family farm, including the land. 3 stories at least, sprawling across what had to be several acres, with a circular driveway, a fountain, and, Hannah's brain couldn't process it, actual security guards standing at attention. Jack pulled to a stop in front of the entrance. He killed the engine but didn't move, just sat there with his hands on the wheel, staring straight ahead. "I'm sorry," he said quietly. "Hannah, I'm so sorry." She couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, couldn't reconcile the man who'd slept in her family's barn with this palace in front of them. "Who are you?" The question came out broken. "Noah." His voice was barely audible. "My name is Noah Carter." Noah Carter. The name hit her like a physical blow. She'd heard it before. Everyone in agricultural Nebraska had heard it before. Carter Agricultural, one of the biggest private farming operations in the Midwest. Billions in land and contracts and influence. And this man who'd shared her porch and eaten her leftovers and pretended to be broke, was the heir to all of it. "You're Noah Carter," Hannah said, and she didn't recognize her own voice. "Yes." "The Noah Carter, the billionaire." "Yes." "And you came to my family's farm pretending to be a broke drifter named Jack Morrison." Noah, not Jack, Noah, finally turned to look at her. His eyes were wet. "Yes." Hannah felt something inside her shatter. "Why?" "Because—" He stopped, swallowed hard. "Because I was tired of people loving my money instead of me. Because every woman I dated only saw the wealth and the lifestyle and the opportunities. Because I wanted to know if anyone could love the man without the empire." He looked at her with such raw honesty it hurt. "Because I wanted to find someone real." "So you lied." "So I lied." "You lied to me." Hannah's voice was rising now, all the shock converting to anger. "You sat on my porch and let me feed you scraps like you were starving. You let me feel sorry for you. You let me think we were the same, both of us trapped and broke and invisible. And the whole time you were testing me, seeing if I was good enough, if I was real enough." "No." "Yes." Hannah was shouting now, and she didn't care. "That's exactly what you were doing. I was some kind of social experiment for you, some way to make yourself feel better about your lonely billionaire life. And I was stupid enough to—" She couldn't finish. Couldn't say that she'd started to fall for him. That she'd begun to imagine a future where someone actually chose her. That she'd believed for the first time in her life that she mattered to someone. "Hannah, please, let me out." "What?" "Let me out of this truck right now." "Hannah, you can't. Where will you go?" She laughed, and it was the most bitter sound she'd ever made. "I don't know. Anywhere. Back to the farm, maybe. They'll give you to Hollis. At least they're honest about using me. Hannah grabbed the door handle. At least they didn't pretend to care first. Noah reached for her hand and Hannah jerked away like his touch burned. Don't, she said. Don't touch me. Don't look at me like you actually care. This was all fake, all of it. It wasn't fake. Noah's voice broke completely. Hannah, everything I felt, everything I feel, that's real. The rest of it, the lying about money, that was wrong. I know it was wrong. But what I feel for you, that's the only real thing I've had in years. How am I supposed to believe that? How am I supposed to believe anything you say? Noah didn't have an answer for that. The passenger door opened from the outside, making them both jump. A woman stood there, 50s, kind face, wearing what looked like an expensive cardigan. Mr. Carter, she said gently, perhaps you should come inside, both of you. Patricia. Noah's entire demeanor changed, softening. Is Mia asleep? She doesn't know you're home yet. The woman, Patricia, looked at Hannah with sympathy. You must be Hannah. I'm Patricia, Mia's nanny. Why don't you come in, dear? You look like you could use some water and a moment to breathe. Hannah wanted to refuse, wanted to run, but she was exhausted and terrified and so completely lost that she didn't know which direction to run even if she tried. So she got out of the truck. Patricia led them inside, through an entrance hall that was bigger than the entire Reed farmhouse. Marble floors, crystal chandelier, art on the walls that Hannah suspected was real and probably worth more than she could imagine. It was beautiful. It was horrible. It was everything Hannah had never been allowed to want. Patricia brought them to what she called the sitting room, as if there were multiple sitting rooms to choose from, and gestured for Hannah to take a chair. I'll get water, Patricia said, and perhaps some food? When did either of you last eat? Noah looked at Hannah. Hannah looked at the floor. It's been a while, Noah admitted. I'll bring something light. Patricia paused at the doorway. Mr. Carter, shall I call Dr. Williams for Hannah's arm? My arm is fine, Hannah said automatically. She has a bruise, Noah said quietly, from where Hollis grabbed her. I saw it in the truck. Hannah looked down at her arm. She hadn't even noticed the purple fingerprints forming on her bicep, too focused on everything else falling apart. I'm fine, she repeated. I'll bring ice, Patricia said firmly, and left before Hannah could protest. Silence filled the space between them. Noah stood by the window, looking out at grounds that seemed to stretch forever. Hannah sat in a chair that probably cost more than everything she'd ever owned combined, and tried to understand how her life had become this. I need you to understand something, Noah said finally, not turning around. I didn't plan to care about you. That wasn't part of this. Oh well, that makes it so much better. I went to your farm to test a theory, to see if someone could love me without the money. It was selfish and stupid and wrong, and I knew it was wrong even while I was doing it. He turned to face her now, and Hannah saw tears on his cheeks. But then I met you, and you weren't part of the test, Hannah. You were the answer to a question I'd been asking my whole life. What question? Whether real people still existed, whether someone could see another person's pain and choose kindness without an agenda, whether love was still possible in a world where everything has a price tag. Noah took a step closer. You fed me when you were hungry. You talked to me when you were invisible. You shared your dreams when everyone had told you that you didn't deserve to have any, and you did it all without knowing who I was or what I could give you. So I passed your test, Hannah said bitterly. Congratulations to me. No, you made me realize how cruel the test was in the first place. Noah sank into the chair across from her. I was so focused on protecting myself from people who wanted my money that I became exactly what I hated. I turned you into a transaction. I measured your worth by whether you could love me despite my lie. And that's not love, Hannah. That's manipulation. Hannah wanted to argue, wanted to tell him he was wrong, that it was worse than he was saying, that she'd never forgive him. But the way he looked, broken and honest and more real than he'd been the entire time she'd known him, made the words stick in her throat. I don't know who you are, she said instead. Jack Morrison was kind and gentle and broken like me. Noah Carter is a stranger who lives in a palace and has security teams and can probably make my family's debt disappear with a phone call. I can. Noah said quietly. And I will, if you let me. See? That's exactly what I mean. You have all the power. You always did. And I was too stupid to see it. You're not stupid. Then what am I, Noah? What was I to you? A project? A charity case? Someone to make you feel better about your empty billionaire life? You were the first person in years who made me feel like a human being instead of a bank account. Noah's voice was fierce now. You were someone who asked if I'd eaten and actually meant it. Someone who shared her dreams even though she thought I couldn't help make them happen. Someone who chose to trust me when I gave her every reason not to. I trusted Jack, not Noah Carter. They're the same person. Are they? Hannah stood up, suddenly unable to sit still, because Jack Morrison would have told me the truth. Jack Morrison wouldn't have had the resources to save me from Grant Hollis and then just watch to see what would happen. Jack Morrison was a coward, Noah interrupted. He was someone I created because I was too scared to risk my real self. And you're right to be angry about that. You're right to hate me for it. Patricia returned then with a tray, water, ice wrapped in a cloth, and sandwiches that looked professionally made. She set it on the table between them and gave Noah a look that clearly said, behave yourself. Eat, she told Hannah. Both of you. Whatever else is happening, you need food. She left again, and Hannah found herself reaching for a sandwich despite everything. She was hungry, so hungry she felt lightheaded, and the food was right there, and somehow eating felt easier than continuing this conversation. Noah took a sandwich too, and they ate in silence for a moment. It was surreal, sitting in this beautiful room with this man who'd lied about everything, eating food that someone else had made, surrounded by wealth she couldn't comprehend. My family's debt, Hannah said finally. How much do they owe Hollis? Noah hesitated. 200,000. And you could pay that right now, tonight, with money you have just sitting around. Yes. Hannah absorbed that. $200,000. The amount that had controlled her entire life, that had led to her being sold like property, that had shaped every decision her family made for years. Pocket change to Noah Carter. Are you going to pay it? She asked. Only if you want me to. Why does it matter what I want? Because this is your life, Hannah. Your family. Your decision. Noah set down his sandwich. I can make Hollis go away. I can pay the debt, tie him up in legal knots so tight he'll never bother you again, and make sure your family never has leverage over you. But I won't do any of it without your permission. What's the catch? No catch. There's always a catch, Noah. That's what I'm learning. He flinched at the use of his real name. The catch is that you'll have to decide if you can ever trust me again. If you can separate who I am from what I have. If you can forgive me for lying about something that shouldn't have mattered, but somehow matters more than anything. Hannah looked at him, really looked at him, and tried to find Jack Morrison in Noah Carter's face. The man who'd sat on her porch, the man who'd held her hand, the man who'd fought 3 people to keep her safe. He was in there somewhere. She could see him in the way Noah's hand shook slightly when he talked about Mia. In the tears, he wasn't bothering to hide. In the way he looked at her like she was the most important person in the world. But there was also this other person. Someone with resources and power and the ability to manipulate reality itself. Someone who could lie for weeks without breaking character. Someone who'd turned her entire life into a test she hadn't known she was taking. I need time, Hannah said finally. You can have all the time you need. And space. I need space to think. Of course. Noah stood up quickly. There are guest rooms. Patricia can show you. You can stay as long as you want, and if you decide you want to leave, I'll take you anywhere. No questions asked. Hannah stood too, wrapping her arms around herself. What about my family? What about Hollis? I'll handle it. Tonight. Marcus will file injunctions, pay the debt through a shell company, so they never know it was me, and make sure Hollis understands that touching you again would be the worst mistake of his life. Noah's expression went dark. He'll never get near you again. I promise. More promises from a liar. Noah took that hit without defending himself. Yeah, more promises from a liar. But Hannah? He waited until she looked at him. I've lied about a lot of things. I'll never lie about keeping you safe. Patricia appeared in the doorway as if summoned. I'll show you to your room, dear. There's a bathroom attached, and I'll bring you some clothes. Mr. Carter's late wife was about your size. The mention of his late wife, his ex-wife, Hannah corrected herself mentally, made everything feel even more complicated. But she was so tired, so completely exhausted. And the idea of a room with a door that locked, a bed that was hers alone, and time to process what had just happened to her life was too tempting to refuse. Okay, Hannah said quietly. She followed Patricia out without looking back at Noah, even though she could feel his eyes on her the entire way. The guest room was beautiful. Of course it was beautiful. Everything in this house was beautiful. The bed looked like something from a magazine, the bathroom had heated floors, and the view from the window showed gardens that seemed to glow in the evening light. Patricia laid out clothes on the bed, soft things, expensive things, and told Hannah that dinner would be available whenever she was hungry. Mr. Carter is a good man, Patricia said gently. I know that's hard to believe right now, but it's true. He makes mistakes, big ones clearly, but his heart is in the right place. Hannah didn't know how to respond to that, so she said nothing. After Patricia left, Hannah stood in the middle of the room and felt the enormity of the day crash over her. This morning she'd woken up on the Reed farm expecting to be handed over to Grant Hollis. Now she was standing in a billionaire's mansion, saved by a man she'd thought she knew but who'd turned out to be someone else entirely. She should have been relieved. She should have been grateful. Instead, she just felt lost. Hannah walked to the window and looked out at the gardens, and for the first time in hours, she let herself cry. Not quiet tears, but gut-wrenching sobs that shook her entire body. She cried for the life she'd escaped, for the family who'd sold her, for the man who'd lied to her, and for the version of herself who'd believed, just for a moment, that someone might love her exactly as she was. That girl was gone now. And Hannah didn't know who she was supposed to be instead. Somewhere in this enormous house, Noah Carter was probably calling his lawyers and arranging to pay her family's debt and making sure Grant Hollis never bothered anyone again. He was using his resources and his power to fix her life the way he probably fixed everything, and Hannah should have been grateful. But all she could think about was the way Jack Morrison's hand had felt in hers on that porch, the way he'd looked at her like she mattered, the way she'd started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved to be seen. That had been real, hadn't it? Or had every moment been calculated, measured, tested? Hannah pressed her forehead against the cool glass and watched the sun disappear behind the trees and wondered if she'd ever be able to separate the truth from the lie, or if it even mattered anymore. Because the man who'd saved her was real, and the man who'd lied to her was real. And somehow, impossibly, they were the same person. And Hannah had no idea what to do with that. Hannah woke to sunlight streaming through windows she didn't recognize in a moment of pure panic before memory crashed back. The mansion. Noah Carter. The lie that had been her entire relationship with a man who didn't actually exist. She sat up slowly, taking in the guest room that was nicer than anywhere she'd ever slept. The clothes Patricia had left were folded neatly on a chair. Through the door she could hear distant sounds, voices, movement, the hum of a house that was lived in. Her phone, the ancient flip phone she'd had for years, sat on the nightstand. Hannah picked it up and saw 17 missed calls, all from the Reed farm. None of them mattered anymore. A soft knock at the door made her jump. Hannah? Patricia's voice, gentle. I have breakfast if you're hungry. No pressure, but Mr. Carter asked me to make sure you had options. Of course he did. Noah Carter, solving problems before they became problems. Hannah opened the door to find Patricia holding a tray with coffee, fresh fruit, and pastries that looked bakery-made. Probably were bakery-made. Probably from some exclusive place that cost more per croissant than Hannah used to spend on groceries for a week. Thank you, Hannah said, taking the tray because refusing felt petty. Mr. Carter is in his office if you need him. Mia's having breakfast in the kitchen. Patricia paused. She doesn't know you're here yet. Mr. Carter wanted to ask you first before introducing you. Even that was a choice he was giving her. Hannah didn't know whether to be grateful or angry that he was being so careful now, after lying for weeks. I'll stay here for now, Hannah said. Patricia nodded and left, and Hannah sat on the bed eating food that tasted perfect and felt like ash in her mouth. She was just finishing when her phone rang. Not the Reed farm this time, a number she didn't recognize. Hannah almost didn't answer. But curiosity, or maybe self-destruction, made her pick up. Hello? Hannah Reed. The voice was male, smooth, familiar in the worst way. This is Grant Hollis. I think we need to talk. Hannah's blood went cold. How did you get this number? Your mother gave it to me. We're all very concerned about you. Hollis's tone was perfectly reasonable, which somehow made it more threatening. Running off with some stranger, not answering calls. We're worried you might be in trouble. I'm fine. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you've been kidnapped by a violent drifter who assaulted me and your brother. The police are very interested in finding him. Hannah's hand tightened on the phone. Jack didn't kidnap me. I left with him. Under duress, after witnessing him attack two men. Hollis paused, letting that sink in. Hannah, I'm trying to help you. We had an arrangement, your family and I. A fair arrangement that would have solved everyone's problems. Now you've run off with some nobody, and your family is in worse trouble than before. That arrangement was you buying me like I was property. That arrangement, Hollis said, voice hardening slightly, was a legitimate business transaction. I was willing to forgive a substantial debt in exchange for companionship, legal companionship. There's nothing wrong with that. Everything is wrong with that. Hannah, listen to me very carefully. Your boyfriend, Jack, or whatever he calls himself, is going to face charges. Assault and battery, possibly kidnapping. If you come back now, cooperate with the police, I can make sure the charges are minimal. But if you stay with him, if you continue this ridiculous rebellion, things are going to get much worse for both of you. Hannah was shaking now, fear and anger mixing together. You can't. I can do whatever I want, sweetheart. That's what happens when you own the county. Hollis's voice dropped to something almost gentle. Be smart. Come home. We'll forget this whole thing happened. You'll fulfill our arrangement like you were supposed to, and your family won't lose everything. It's really very simple. Go to hell, Hannah said, and hung up. She was still shaking when another knock came at the door. This time she knew it was Noah before Patricia even spoke. Mr. Carter would like to speak with you. He says it's important. Hannah wanted to refuse, wanted to stay locked in this beautiful room where she didn't have to face any of it. But Hollis's call had changed something, made the danger real again. She opened the door. Where is he? Patricia led her through the mansion, past rooms Hannah hadn't seen yesterday, down a hallway lined with photographs of a little girl at various ages, and finally to a heavy wooden door that was slightly ajar. Noah's office was nothing like the rest of the house. Where everything else was designed and decorated, this space felt lived in. Papers scattered across a massive desk, coffee mugs in various states of empty, and covering one entire wall, a map of the Midwest dotted with pins and notes. Noah stood at the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in a tone Hannah had never heard from him before. I don't care what he filed. Counter it. I want injunctions on all his properties by noon, and I want every business dealing he's touched in the last 5 years audited. Pause. No, Marcus. I want him buried. I want him to understand that touching her was the worst decision he ever made. Hannah's breath caught. Noah turned, saw her, and his entire demeanor shifted. I'll call you back, he said into the phone, and hung up without waiting for a response. Hannah. He looked like he hadn't slept. How are you? Grant Hollis just called me. Noah's expression went dark. What did he say? That he's filing charges against you. Assault, kidnapping, that I need to come back or things will get worse. Hannah wrapped her arms around herself. He said he owns the county, that he can do whatever he wants. He's wrong. Noah's voice was flat, certain. He might have owned the county yesterday. Today he's about to find out what happens when he threatens someone under my protection. Your protection? Hannah laughed, but there was no humor in it. I'm not some project you need to protect, Noah. I'm a person who's caught in the middle of something I don't understand. I know that. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, you've taken control of my entire life. You're making calls, filing injunctions, handling everything, just like my family did, just like Hollis wanted to do. Hannah's voice broke. Everyone keeps deciding what's best for me, and nobody bothers to ask what I want. Noah went very still. What do you want? I want to understand what's happening. I want to know what you're doing and why. I want... She stopped, frustrated. I want to feel like I have some control over my own life for once. Noah was quiet for a long moment. Then he gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit, please. I'll tell you everything. Hannah sat, and Noah returned to his own chair. Between them, the desk created a distance that felt both necessary and painful. I called Marcus last night, Noah began. He's my head of security and my lawyer. I had him file emergency injunctions preventing Hollis from contacting you or your family. I also had him pay off your family's debt through a shell corporation, so they'll never know it came from me. Why a shell corporation? Because the second they know I'm involved, they'll come looking for more. This way, the debt is cleared, they're free, and there's no connection to you or to me. Hannah processed that. How much did it cost? $200,000 for the debt, another $100 for legal fees, and to make sure the payment sticks. Noah said it like he was discussing groceries. It's done. Hollis has no leverage anymore. $300,000, Hannah said slowly. You spent $300,000 on my family. I spent it on your freedom. What about the assault charges? Noah's smile was sharp and entirely humorless. Marcus is handling that too. Turns out Hollis has several previous complaints filed against him by other families. Nothing that stuck because he has the local police in his pocket, but enough to establish a pattern. We're bringing in federal investigators, and I guarantee you that by the time they're done, Hollis will be too busy defending himself to worry about pressing charges against anyone. Hannah stared at him. You're destroying him. Yes. Just like that? Just like that. Noah leaned forward. Hannah, men like Hollis exist because people are too scared or too poor to fight back. I'm neither. And I meant what I said. He'll never touch you again. It should have felt like victory, like justice. But all Hannah could think about was the casual way Noah wielded power that most people couldn't even imagine having. What about my family? She asked. What about them? Are you going to destroy them too? Noah's expression softened. That's your choice. I can make them leave you alone permanently. Legal boundaries, restraining orders, whatever you need. Or I can do nothing, and you can decide later if you want any relationship with them. But Hannah, his voice was gentle. They tried to sell you. I need you to remember that. I know what they did. Do you? Because you're still calling them family. They're the only family I have, Hannah said quietly. No, they're not. Noah's intensity was almost physical. Family is the people who choose you, who see you, who fight for you when you can't fight for yourself. Blood doesn't make family. Love does. Hannah felt tears prick her eyes. You don't get to say that. You don't get to redefine family for me after lying about who you are. You're right, I don't. Noah sagged back in his chair. I'm sorry. I'm trying to help, and I keep making it worse. They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down between them. Can I ask you something? Hannah said finally. Anything. Your daughter, Mia. Where is she in all this? Noah's entire face transformed at the mention of his daughter. She's here, in the house. She doesn't know you're here yet because I didn't want to involve her unless you decided to stay. Stay, Hannah repeated. You mean live here? I mean, whatever you want it to mean. You can stay in the guest room, stay for a few days until you figure out what you want to do next, or... He stopped himself. Or what? Noah looked at her with such raw honesty that Hannah had to look away. Or you could stay because you want to. Because somewhere under all the lies and the money and the mess I made of this, there's still two people who sat on a porch and talked about the ocean. Jack and Hannah, she whispered. Jack doesn't exist. I know. But the man who asked if you'd eaten, he's real. The man who listened to your dreams about a bakery and the ocean and a life where you mattered, he's real. That's me, Hannah. That's who I am under all of this. Noah gestured at the office, the mansion, the empire implied in every expensive surface. The rest is just noise. Hannah wanted to believe him, wanted it so badly it physically hurt. I don't know how to separate them, she admitted. Jack Morrison and Noah Carter, the lie and the truth. They're all tangled together, and I don't... Her voice broke. I don't know how to trust you again. I understand. Do you? Because you keep saying you understand, but you have all the power here, Noah. You can pay my debts, destroy my enemies, give me everything I've ever wanted with a phone call. How am I supposed to know if I'm choosing you or choosing the life you can give me? The question hung between them, sharp and devastating. I don't know, Noah said quietly. That's the problem I created when I lied. I wanted to know if someone could love me without the money, so I hid the money. But now I've shown you the money, and there's no way to unsee it. No way to prove that what you feel, if you feel anything, is about me and not about this. He gestured around the office again, helpless. So what do we do? I don't know that either. Noah ran his hands through his hair, the gesture so familiar that Hannah's chest ached. I just know that I'm not sorry I saved you. I'm sorry I lied. I'm sorry I hurt you, but I'm not sorry you're here and safe and free from Hollis. I'd do it again, even knowing it would cost me any chance with you. A small voice from the doorway made them both turn. Daddy? A little girl stood there, dark curls wild around her face, clutching a stuffed rabbit. She was beautiful, the kind of beautiful that came from being loved completely, and she was staring at Hannah with open curiosity. Mia, baby, I'm in a meeting, Noah started. Who's that? Mia pointed directly at Hannah. Noah looked at Hannah, asking permission with his eyes. Hannah found herself nodding, not sure why, except that this little girl was real and innocent and deserved better than being lied to. This is my friend Hannah, Noah said gently. Hannah, this is Mia. Hi, Hannah managed. Mia walked into the room with the confidence of someone who knew she was loved and welcome everywhere. She studied Hannah carefully, then announced, You're pretty. Are you Daddy's girlfriend? Mia? Noah's face went red. It's okay, Hannah said, surprising herself. She looked at this 4-year-old who asked questions without fear and felt something crack open in her chest. No, sweetheart. Your daddy and I are just friends. Oh. Mia looked disappointed. Daddy needs a girlfriend. He's lonely. Mia, that's not... We don't need to talk about this right now, Noah said, but his voice was gentle, embarrassed. Miss Patricia says you work too much and forget to be happy, Mia continued, oblivious to her father's discomfort. She turned back to Hannah. Do you like cookies? The change of subject was so abrupt that Hannah almost laughed. I do, actually. Me too. Miss Patricia and I made chocolate chip yesterday. Daddy ate 4 and said he was full, but I know he wanted more. Mia climbed onto Noah's lap without asking, making herself comfortable. You should stay for lunch. We're having grilled cheese. I don't know if Hannah wants... Noah started. I'll stay for lunch, Hannah heard herself say. Mia beamed. Noah looked at Hannah like she'd just given him something precious. Really? He asked quietly. Really, but just lunch. Hannah met his eyes. And then we're going to keep talking about everything else. All of it. No more secrets. No more secrets, Noah agreed. Mia, sensing adult conversation, wiggled off her father's lap and grabbed Hannah's hand with sticky fingers. Come on, I'll show you my room. I have a castle bed and everything. Hannah let herself be pulled from the office, glancing back once to see Noah watching them with an expression that was equal parts hope and terror. Patricia was waiting in the hallway, smiling knowingly. Looks like Mia's adopted you already. She's very direct, Hannah said. She's her father's daughter. Patricia's expression softened. He's a good man, Hannah. Imperfect, clearly, but good where it counts. Before Hannah could respond, Mia was tugging her toward the stairs, chattering about the castle bed and her stuffed animals and all the important 4-year-old topics that mattered in her world. The room was exactly what Mia had promised. A castle bed with purple curtains, walls painted with clouds and stars, and enough toys to stock a small store. But what struck Hannah was how lived in it felt. How loved. This wasn't a showpiece decorated by professionals. This was a little girl's room, messy and real and full of evidence that someone cared. Daddy painted the clouds, Mia said proudly, pointing at the ceiling. He did it before I was born. Well, before I came out of Mommy's tummy. But Mommy left and Daddy stayed, so really he's the one who painted them. Hannah's heart clenched at the casual way Mia mentioned her mother leaving. Do you miss your mom? Hannah asked gently, sitting on the floor beside Mia. Mia shrugged, organizing her stuffed animals by size. I don't really remember her. Miss Patricia says she had to go find herself, whatever that means. But Daddy's here, so it's okay. The simple acceptance in her voice was heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. Your dad loves you very much, Hannah said. I know, he tells me every day. Mia looked up suddenly. Do you have a daddy? I do, but he's not around anymore. Like my mommy? Kind of. Mia considered this, then handed Hannah a stuffed elephant. You can have Mr. Trunk. He's good for when you're sad. Hannah took the elephant, something inside her breaking at the gesture. This little girl, who barely knew her, was offering comfort in the way children did, simply, directly, without complicated adult reasoning. Thank you, Mia. They played for a while, Mia explaining elaborate stories about her stuffed animals while Hannah listened and tried not to think about the conversation waiting for her downstairs. But eventually, Mia's energy flagged, and Patricia appeared to take her for quiet time before lunch. Hannah found herself alone in the hallway, holding a stuffed elephant and feeling more confused than ever. She wandered back downstairs, not sure where she was going, and found herself in what looked like a library. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, comfortable chairs, windows overlooking the gardens she'd seen last night, and Noah, sitting in one of the chairs, staring at nothing. She gave you Mr. Trunk, he said without looking up. That means she likes you. She only shares the important ones. Hannah sat in the chair across from him, the elephant in her lap. She's wonderful. She's my whole world. Noah finally looked at her. Everything I did, the lying, the testing, all of it, it was because I was terrified of bringing someone into her life who would leave, like her mother did. I couldn't let that happen again. So you lied instead. So I lied instead. Noah leaned forward, elbows on his knees. And I hurt you in the process. I know that. I just don't know how to fix it. Hannah looked at this man, this billionaire, this father, this liar, this person who'd saved her, and felt the impossible weight of everything they were to each other. Tell me about her, she said quietly. Your ex-wife, Sarah. Noah was quiet for a long moment. We met young. She was beautiful, ambitious, from a family that saw mine and saw opportunity. I thought she loved me. Turned out she loved the idea of the life I could give her. When Mia came and that life turned out to involve midnight feedings and sacrifice and actual work, she couldn't handle it. She left when Mia was 6 months old and never looked back. That must have destroyed you. It did. But more than that, it made me paranoid. Every woman after that, all I could see was Sarah. All I could wonder was whether they wanted me or the money. It poisoned everything. So you became Jack Morrison. So I became Jack Morrison, a broke drifter with nothing to offer except himself. I thought if someone could love that version of me, it would be real. Noah's laugh was bitter. I didn't account for the fact that lying fundamentally corrupts any relationship built on it. That even if you loved Jack, it wouldn't matter because Jack wasn't real. But you are, Hannah said. You're real. The man who asked if I'd eaten, who listened to my dreams, who fought for me, that's you, Noah. Not Jack. You. How can you know that? Because money doesn't teach you how to see invisible people. Hannah held his gaze. Money doesn't make you gentle with someone who's been hurt. Money doesn't make you risk yourself to save a stranger. You did all that. Not your bank account. You. Noah's eyes were wet. Hannah, but I can't. She had to look away. I can't just forgive it. I can't pretend the lying doesn't matter, because it does matter. It matters that you tested me. It matters that you had all the power, and I had none. It matters that I fell for someone who doesn't actually exist. What if I became him? Noah said desperately. What if I proved that Jack and Noah are the same person? What if... You can't become someone you already are. Hannah stood up, still clutching the elephant. That's what I'm trying to tell you. You don't need to prove anything. You just need to be honest, completely honest, about everything. Okay, Noah said immediately. What do you want to know? Everything. Hannah looked at him, this powerful man who somehow seemed so vulnerable. I want to know about your childhood, your marriage, your business. I want to know how you built all this and why you spend your days managing farms instead of just collecting money. I want to know what scares you and what makes you happy, and why you thought lying was better than taking a chance on the truth. That's going to take a while. We have time, Hannah said, if you're willing to give it. Noah stood too, and for a moment they just looked at each other across the space between them. Can I ask you something? Noah said finally. Yes. Why did you agree to stay for lunch? After everything, why did you say yes when Mia asked? Hannah thought about the little girl with wild curls and sticky hands, about the room painted with clouds, about a father who'd stayed when the mother left. Because I wanted to see if the man who raised that little girl could be the same man who lied to me, she said honestly. And I think maybe he is. I think maybe you're both the liar and the hero, the billionaire and the man on the porch. And I don't know what to do with that yet, but I want to understand it. And if you can't forgive it, Noah's voice was barely a whisper, then at least I'll know I tried. Hannah moved toward the door, then stopped. Noah? Yeah? Thank you for paying the debt, for stopping Hollis, for giving me a choice. She managed a small smile. Even if you're terrible at giving people choices without also trying to control everything else. Noah laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. I'm working on that. Work faster. Hannah left him there and went to find Patricia, to ask about lunch, to maybe spend time with a little girl who'd given her a stuffed elephant and asked impossible questions with fearless honesty. And as she walked through the mansion that still felt like a beautiful prison, Hannah realized something important. She wasn't ready to forgive Noah yet. But maybe, she was ready to try to understand him. And for now, that would have to be enough. Lunch was chaos in the best possible way. Mia insisted Hannah sit next to her, narrating every detail of the grilled cheese preparation like it was high art. Noah sat across from them, quiet but present, watching Hannah interact with his daughter with an expression that made her chest ache. Patricia hovered nearby, pretending not to supervise but clearly delighted by the dynamic unfolding at her kitchen table. And then you flip it, Mia explained seriously, demonstrating with her sandwich, but not too fast or the cheese falls out and makes a mess and Daddy says bad words. I do not, Noah protested mildly. You said, damn it, last Tuesday. That was different. I burned my hand. Still a bad word. Mia took a triumphant bite of her sandwich and Hannah found herself smiling despite everything. This was real. Whatever else was complicated and broken between her and Noah, this moment, this little girl and her father and their easy love for each other, was completely, painfully real. After lunch, Mia begged Hannah to come see the gardens, and Hannah agreed before she could think better of it. Noah followed at a careful distance, giving them space but staying close enough to hear Mia's endless commentary about every flower, every stone, every butterfly that crossed their path. Daddy planted these roses for Mommy, Mia said, pointing at a particularly beautiful section. But then she left, so now they're just Daddy's roses. He talks to them sometimes when he thinks I'm not listening. Noah cleared his throat uncomfortably. Mia, maybe we shouldn't... It's okay, Daddy. Hannah's nice. She won't tell anyone you talk to flowers. Mia looked up at Hannah with complete seriousness. He tells them about his feelings. Miss Patricia says it's healthy. Hannah glanced at Noah, who looked like he wanted the earth to swallow him whole. I think that's very healthy, Hannah said gently. See? Mia turned back to her father triumphantly. I told you she was nice. They spent another hour in the gardens before Mia's energy finally crashed. Patricia collected her for an actual nap, and suddenly Hannah found herself alone with Noah in the fading afternoon light. I'm sorry about that, Noah said, gesturing vaguely toward where Mia had disappeared into the house. She has no filter. She's honest, Hannah said. It's refreshing. She gets it from me. Well, the version of me I'm trying to be. The version that doesn't lie to people I care about. They walked in silence for a while, following the garden paths that wound through Noah's property. Hannah tried to imagine what it would be like to own all of this, to have this kind of beauty as a backdrop to everyday life, and couldn't quite manage it. Can I show you something? Noah asked finally. Okay. He led her to a greenhouse at the far end of the gardens, a structure Hannah hadn't noticed before. Inside, the air was warm and humid, full of the smell of earth and growing things. And everywhere, vegetables. Tomatoes climbing trellises, peppers in neat rows, herbs spilling from raised beds. It looked like a smaller, more sophisticated version of the garden Hannah had maintained at the Reed farm. I don't understand, Hannah said. After I left your farm, after I came back here and tried to figure out what I was doing, I couldn't stop thinking about your garden, about how you grew all that food and nobody appreciated it, how you had this gift and everyone treated it like it was worthless. Noah walked between the rows, touching leaves gently. So I had this built, hired a consultant, tried to learn what you already knew instinctively. Hannah felt something crack in her chest. Why? Because I wanted to understand you. And because Noah stopped, turning to face her. Because I kept thinking about what you said, about wanting a bakery where you could make things that made people happy. And I thought, what if you could do that? What if all of this wasn't a dream you had to give up? Noah, I'm not offering you anything, he said quickly. I'm not trying to buy you or fix you or make decisions for you. I'm just saying that this exists, that if you wanted to learn more about growing things commercially, or if you wanted space to experiment with baking, or if you just wanted to dig in dirt and think about possibilities, it's here. No strings attached. Hannah looked at the greenhouse, at this space he'd created while thinking about her, and didn't know whether to cry or scream. You really don't understand, do you? She said quietly. Understand what? That every time you do something like this, it makes it harder. Every time you show me how thoughtful you can be, how much you notice, how deeply you care, it makes it harder to remember why I'm supposed to be angry at you. Noah's expression was pure anguish. I don't want to manipulate you into forgiving me. I know you don't. That's what makes it so complicated. Hannah walked to one of the tomato plants, touching the leaves the way Noah had. If you were just a rich man trying to buy my affection, this would be easy. I could hate you cleanly, but you're not. You're someone who builds greenhouses because you can't stop thinking about someone else's dreams, and I don't know what to do with that. What do you want to do with it? Hannah turned to face him, this man who'd lied and saved her and somehow become the most important and most confusing person in her life. I want to be angry, she admitted. I want to hold on to the hurt and use it as armor. But every time I try, I remember sitting on that porch with you. And I don't know if I was sitting with Jack Morrison or Noah Carter, but I know that whoever he was, he saw me, really saw me. And nobody had done that in so long that Her voice broke. Hannah, I think I'm falling in love with you, she said, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. And I hate that. I hate that you lied and I'm still falling. I hate that I can't separate the man from the money, the truth from the lies. I hate that when Mia gave me that stuffed elephant, all I could think was that I want this family, this life, this chance to be someone's choice instead of someone's burden. Noah closed the distance between them in 2 steps, but stopped just short of touching her, his hands clenched at his sides like he was physically restraining himself. You're not a burden, he said fiercely. You have never been a burden. And if you want this, if you want any part of this life, it's yours. Not because of the money or the greenhouse or anything I can buy. Because you deserve to be chosen. You deserve to be seen. You deserve... Stop. Hannah held up a hand. Stop offering me everything. Stop trying to fix it all with resources and grand gestures. She took a shaky breath. Just tell me the truth. Right now. Can you love me without testing me? Can you trust me without hiding behind fake names and lies? Can you be Noah Carter? Completely honest, completely vulnerable, and believe that might be enough? The question hung between them in the humid air of the greenhouse. Noah was quiet for a long moment, and Hannah watched emotions play across his face, fear, hope, desperation, and finally, something that looked like resignation mixed with courage. I don't know, he said finally. I've spent so many years protecting myself that I'm not sure I remember how to be completely open. Sarah destroyed something in me when she left, and I've been trying to rebuild it wrong ever since. He met Hannah's eyes. But I want to try. With you. If you'll let me. What does trying look like? It looks like me being terrified that you'll see all of me. The broken parts, the controlling parts, the parts that lie because it feels safer than truth. And deciding I'm not worth it. Noah's voice was raw. It looks like me trusting that maybe, possibly, you could love me anyway. Not despite the flaws, but including them. The way I love you. Hannah's breath caught. You love me. I love you, Noah confirmed. I fell in love with you on that porch when you asked if I'd eaten and actually cared about the answer. I fell deeper when you shared your dreams like they were precious secrets. And I fell completely when I watched you choose to trust me even after I'd given you every reason not to. He took a shaky breath. I love you, Hannah Reed, and I'm sorry it took me lying to figure that out. Hannah felt tears streaming down her face, hot and unexpected. I don't know if love is enough, she whispered. I know, and I don't blame you for that. I don't know if I can trust you again. I know that too. I don't know. Hannah's voice broke completely. I don't know how to do this. How to love someone who hurt me. How to build something real on a foundation made of lies. Then let me show you. Noah finally reached for her hands, gentle, giving her every chance to pull away. When she didn't, he held them like they were infinitely fragile. Let me prove that I can be honest. Completely, painfully honest. No more secrets, no more tests. Just me, trying every day to be worthy of your trust. What if it's not enough? Then at least we tried. Hannah looked down at their joined hands and thought about everything that had brought them to this moment. The porch conversations, the lies, the rescue, the greenhouse built from thoughtfulness and regret, Mia's stuffed elephant, and Patricia's knowing smiles, and a little girl who needed her father to find happiness. And somewhere underneath all of that, two people who'd been invisible for so long that being seen by each other felt like salvation and terror in equal measure. Okay, Hannah heard herself say. Noah's eyes widened. Okay? Okay, you can try. We can try. Hannah squeezed his hands. But Noah, I need you to understand something. I can't be your redemption project. I can't be the person you fix to prove you're a good man. I need to be your equal, your partner, someone you choose to be honest with because you respect me, not because you're afraid I'll leave. I understand. And I need time. Real time to figure out who I am outside of the Reed farm and Grant Hollis and all of it. Time to decide what I want my life to look like before I try to build it with someone else. How much time? Hannah managed a watery smile. I don't know. How long does it take to learn to trust someone who lied about everything? However long you need, Noah said immediately. I'll wait. I'll prove it, whatever it takes. They stood there in the greenhouse, hands clasped, both of them crying, both of them terrified, both of them choosing to try anyway. Finally, Hannah pulled back slightly. I should probably figure out what I'm doing, where I'm going. I can't just live in your guest room forever. Why not? Because that's not how this works. I need my own space, my own life. Otherwise, I'll just be trading one kind of dependence for another. Noah nodded slowly, and Hannah could see him fighting the urge to solve the problem immediately. What do you need? I need... Hannah thought about her dreams. The bakery, the ocean, a life where she made her own choices. I need to figure out what I'm good at, what I want, who I am when nobody's deciding for me. Okay. Noah released her hands, and she saw what it cost him to step back. Then let's do that. No pressure, no expectations. Just let me help you figure it out. As a friend. If nothing else, let me be your friend through this. You want to be friends? Hannah couldn't help the skeptical tone. I want to be whatever you need me to be while you figure out what you want. Before Hannah could respond, her phone rang. The Reed farm again. She'd been ignoring them all day, but something made her answer this time. Hello? Hannah? Her mother's voice brittle and angry. What the hell did you do? Hannah's stomach dropped. What are you talking about? The debt. Someone paid it. Some company we've never heard of just wiped out everything we owed Hollis, and now he's threatening to sue us for breach of contract. Diane's voice rose. Was this you? Did you find some man with money and sell yourself properly this time? The words hit like a slap, but Hannah found herself standing straighter instead of curling inward. No, Mother. I found someone who thinks I'm worth more than a debt payment. Don't be naive. Men like that don't exist. Whoever paid this wants something, and when you can't deliver, you'll come crawling back. I won't. Hannah's voice was steady, certain. I'm not coming back. Not to the farm. Not to you. Not to any of it. You ungrateful... I'm done. Hannah looked at Noah, who was watching her with a mixture of pride and concern. I'm done being treated like I owe you something for being born. I'm done accepting blame for Dad leaving. I'm done being invisible in my own life. Tell Tyler and Amber and anyone else who asks that I'm fine, I'm safe, and I'm never coming back. Hannah, she hung up. Her hands were shaking, but she felt lighter than she had in years. That was, Noah started, necessary. Hannah took a deep breath. I should have done that years ago. I'm proud of you. Don't be. Not yet. Hannah met his eyes. I'm still figuring out how to be proud of myself first. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. Hannah started to build a life. Not the life Noah offered her, though he offered constantly, and she refused just as constantly. Her own life, pieced together from careful choices and small rebellions. She moved out of the guest room and into a small apartment in Lincoln that Patricia helped her find. It wasn't much, a studio with questionable plumbing and neighbors who played music too loud. But it was hers, paid for with money Noah had transferred to an account in her name, which they'd argued about for 3 days before Hannah finally accepted it as a loan, not a gift, with a written contract and everything. She enrolled in community college classes on horticulture and small business management, sat in classrooms with people 10 years younger than her, and learned about soil composition and profit margins and marketing strategies. She got a job at a local bakery, minimum wage and early mornings, learning the craft she'd only dreamed about. Her first loaves were disasters. Her third week, the owner told her she had natural talent. By the second month, customers were specifically requesting her sourdough. And through it all, Noah kept his promise. He didn't pressure her, didn't try to solve everything, didn't show up unannounced or make grand gestures. He just existed. Available, but not overwhelming. Supportive, but not controlling. They talked on the phone most evenings, sometimes about important things, often about nothing at all. Noah told her about Mia's preschool adventures and the challenges of running a business empire while trying to be present for his daughter. Hannah told him about her classes and her coworkers and the small victories of learning to live independently. Slowly, carefully, they built something that looked like friendship. And underneath that friendship, something else grew. Something patient and terrifying and absolutely inevitable. 3 months after Hannah had fled the Reed farm, she got a call from Marcus. We need to talk about Hollis, he said without preamble. Hannah's blood went cold. What about him? The federal investigation found enough to file charges. Fraud, coercion, pattern of predatory lending practices. He's looking at serious time if convicted. Marcus paused. But his lawyers are trying to make a deal. They want testimony from his victims in exchange for a reduced sentence. And you're asking if I'll testify. I'm asking if you want to. This is completely your choice, Hannah. You don't owe anyone this. Hannah thought about all the other families Hollis had hurt, all the other women who might be trapped the way she'd been trapped. I'll do it, she said. The trial took 4 months to prepare. Hannah spent hours with lawyers, recounting every detail of what had happened. It was brutal and exhausting and absolutely necessary. Noah offered to be there. Hannah told him she needed to do it alone. But when the day came and Hannah walked into the courthouse, she found him waiting anyway. Not in the courtroom, just in the hallway, holding coffee and looking terrified. I know you said alone, he said quickly, and I'll leave if you want, but I couldn't. I needed to be here, just in case. Hannah took the coffee. You're terrible at following instructions. I'm working on it. Work faster. She'd meant to say it sternly, but it came out fond, and Noah's smile was bright enough to chase shadows. Hannah testified for 3 hours, told the court about the arrangement, the debt, the moment she'd been dragged toward a car while her family watched, told them about feeling like property, like something to be traded and used and discarded. And when Hollis's lawyer tried to suggest she'd been a willing participant, Hannah looked him dead in the eye and said, I was never willing, I was surviving, there's a difference. The jury took 2 days to convict. When the verdict came in, Hannah was at the bakery, elbow deep in dough. Her boss came to tell her, phone in hand, and Hannah just nodded and went back to kneading. Later, when her shift ended, she found Noah waiting outside. Marcus called me, he said. I know you probably want space, but I thought maybe we could celebrate? Nothing big, just Acknowledgement that you did something brave and important. Hannah looked at this man who'd learned to wait, to ask instead of assume, to give her space while making it clear he'd still be there when she was ready. Okay, she said, but I get to choose where. She chose the ocean. They drove 6 hours to the Pacific coast, Mia in the back seat singing off-key to the radio, Patricia having quietly arranged to stay behind so the three of them could have this time together.